apparently these are the best offenses in the NFL. What's going on, football fans? It's Mitch back here with another NFL reaction video. And in this video, I'll be reacting to a really bad top offenses in the NFL list, brought to you by the 33rd team and their writer, Marcus Mosher, who I believe also writes for Pro Football Focus. So his opinions are pretty widespread across the community. So I want to give you my opinion on his list. Before I do, Gronk spike the like button. Don't forget to subscribe for more NFL reactions just like this, and let me know in the comments your opinion on the top offenses in the league. And the way I want to start this is by being objective, by taking a look at 2023 and the final standings for the best offenses in football. And we're going to do that by looking at the best metrics, in my opinion, for evaluating offenses in the current NFL, which would be EPA and success rate. So last season, in 2023, as you can see, the San Francisco 49ers were the best offense in the NFL in both EPA and success rate. And they were both historic offenses, over a 50% success rate, and absolutely obliterated the competition in EPA per play, okay? So the Niners were the best offense in the league, got them to the Super Bowl. The Dallas Cowboys, according to EPA, were the second best offense in the league, and these two offenses were significantly better than the rest of the competition, okay? The Buffalo Bills were the second best team in success rate and the third best offense according to EPA per play. The Miami Dolphins were fourth, the Packers fifth, the Ravens sixth, the Eagles seventh, the Lions eighth, the Rams ninth, the Seahawks surprisingly 10th, the Chiefs all the way down at 11th, and even without Joe Burrow, the Bengals were still at 13th, okay? So maybe a couple offenses that you would have expected to be a little bit higher, maybe like Houston, a little bit lower than expected. But overall, I think widespread, a lot of people would agree that in 2023, those were the best offenses in the NFL. Okay, so now let's take a look at his list, and let's see where he went wrong. So, the top offensive cores is the headline. Now, I don't exactly know what he means or what this means, because all I saw scrolling across the X is that it's a top offensive cores list, okay? And I don't know what offensive cores mean. So I'm going to say that this is not only an offense ranking, but it probably is also talking about the quarterback, the play caller, the offensive line, the skill talent. I don't exactly know what a core would be on offense because everything impacts it. The tight end, the receivers, the running backs. Regardless, I don't know, is it play caller, quarterback? I don't really understand the title of this. But regardless, we're talking about the best offenses in the league. At number one, he has the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, as we just mentioned, in 2023, the Kansas City Chiefs were the 11th best offense in the NFL, according to EPA per play. Now, you might argue and say, well, it's a new season. They did add Marquise Brown. They still have Rashee Rice for probably a good amount of the season. They've got Travis Kelce. They've got Xavier Worthy, right? They've got a pretty good to awesome offensive line. Isaiah Pacheco, yes, the core is there to be very good this year. But number one, right, when we think back to the Chiefs, what allowed them to win the Super Bowl, it wasn't just the clutch Patrick Mahomes plays, but when you think about their success, the defense is really at the core of what won them the Super Bowl in 2023. The offense was fairly average for a majority of last season. So putting the Chiefs at number one is a large projection. Large projection. Now, if it's just going based off core, I don't really, again, is it Mahomes, Reed, Kelce, a receiver, the offensive line, which, by the way, is not really currently having an employed left tackle that can block anybody. So I kind of feel like, sure, you could put the Chiefs in this top 8. That is perfectly understandable, especially considering their success in a couple of the playoff games, the Bills and the 49ers, Super Bowl in the second half, even the Dolphins game to a certain degree. They're very much struggled for a majority of the Ravens game. They struggled for the first half of the 49er game. The only games that were really smooth at the end of the year was the Bills game, who was missing half their defense, and the Dolphins, who were also missing a ton of players. So they kind of got by with smoke and mirrors last year. Now, maybe the receiver talent will drastically upgrade their production this year. And obviously having Patrick Mahomes, Andy Reid, and Travis Kelce helps, and a very good interior offensive line especially. But I would not look at the Chiefs and project them to be the best offense in the league. I think it's probably more possible that they're a top 5, maybe simply just a top 10 unit. Because like last year, they were barely even a top 10, if not even a top 10 unit. So I would say they're probably top 5 this year, but I would not consider them the best offense in the league simply based on what happened last year. And even when you look at when their production got better, like when they started to kind of pick it up and understand what their identity was, even in the Super Bowl and in the biggest games of the year, they were not like a great offense by any standard. So the Chiefs at number 1 just doesn't really make a lot of sense to me other than the fact that they just have Mahomes. So we're going to put them number 1. Number 2, the Philadelphia Eagles. I could see where people would be excited for the Eagles offense. Don't get me wrong, but I will say that it's going to be a new offensive mind, a new offensive coordinator that many people expect to be an upgrade in Kellen Moore. Kellen Moore did not blow me away in Los Angeles last year. I will say that, but Jason Kelce is now gone, who's a huge piece to that core of that offense and what made it so special, especially in the running game. But that being said, Jalen Hurts is dynamic as a rusher and a thrower, right? Saquon has joined this team to provide a steady workhorse running back that can hit home run plays, can catch the football as well. A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert. There is a great core there. Lane Johnson still playing, Jordan Mailata, Landon Dickerson. I can understand the talent, right? No doubt about it. But at the same time, last season, the Eagles were the 7th best offense in the league. And are we suggesting that getting Saquon Barkley and losing DeAndre Swift and losing Jason Kelce and adding Kellen Moore is going to be the difference between them being the 6th best offense and the 2nd best offense? I do think the Eagles on paper are a top 5 offense in the NFL, but late last year, they definitely had issues. They were not running the ball as well. Their creativity in the passing game was non-existent. They really struggled with blitzes, and Jalen Hurts really struggled. I think overall, the biggest problem that I have with this ranking is that I simply think Jalen Hurts is a tad overrated right now. Like, I think people give him a little bit too much credit, and I feel like he has had one great year in the NFL, and other than that, he has not been super productive in the NFL. And a lot of that came with a extremely good play caller in Shane Steichen and an extremely loaded receiving core, offensive line at its peak. So it's hard for me to suggest that the Eagles are number 2, but I could see them in the top 5. The Ravens at number 3, I think is a big L, like fat L. Like, I don't understand this one just because the Ravens offensive line is going to be completely new this year. Again, they do have Lamar. Derrick Henry is a beast. Mark Andrews, Isaiah Likely, Zay Flowers. I like those pieces. But their receiving core is fairly average, okay? Zay Flowers, Rashad Bateman, Nelson Aguilar, right? I'm not getting too excited about their wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3s. Some people like Bateman. I've never really seen it personally. Mark Andrews, Isaiah Likely is a great tight end duo, but Andrews might be slowing down at this point, given, the injuries and the age concerns are starting to come for him. And Isaiah Likely, I like, but they haven't really figured out how to use Andrews and Likely at the same time. And until they do, I kind of can't really say that that's going to work out. So is Henry still the same guy at an older age, having let go from Tennessee and joining Baltimore? Now, I think they're a top 10 offense because I think they've got enough. They've got an elite quarterback. They've got potentially an elite running back, an elite tight end, and then a very good receiver, I think, in Zay Flowers, who I'm excited for in year 2. But the offensive line is definitely worse. There's no doubt about it. Like, Kevin Zeitler is gone to Detroit, right? The center position is great. Ronnie Stanley is injured like half the time. Morgan Moses is gone. John Simpson is gone. So they're having to replace 3 starters on the offensive line. And the offensive line is the crux. It's the core. It's the fundamental aspect of this offense, given that they're still a strong running team and they love to run the football. And Derrick Henry is going to be a big element. Keaton Mitchell maybe as well. So I could see where the Ravens are exciting to be in the top 10, but the offensive line concerns and just the lack of overall passing game flair is what makes me say they're a very good offense, but I would not say they're an elite offense. I would not put them in the top 3. Okay, and this is where we maybe get to the teams where I would put them in the top 3. San Francisco is the best offense in the league. Putting San Francisco at number 5 is absolutely like a disservice, and you should be fined for it, honestly. Like, the San Francisco 49ers, we just checked the stats, were by far the best offense in the league according to EPA and success rate last year. The only offense in the league to have an above 50% success rate. They were also first in points per play, or points per drive, I should say, and yards per drive. So yards, points, doesn't really matter. Like, you look at the balance of the offense, you look at the overall core of the offense. If we're talking about cores, okay, sure, Brock Purdy is not as good as Mahomes, but they've got Brandon Ayuk, George Kittle, Deebo Samuel, the Madden cover boy, Christian McCaffrey. Congratulations to CMC. Love seeing a running back on the cover. They just added a first-round receiver and were the best offense in the NFL last year and did not lose a single piece on their offense, including Jawan Jennings, who could have been the Super Bowl MVP, is their number 4 receiver. Number 3, number 4, right? George Kittle, maybe their number 5 option. So, like, seriously? Jawan Jennings would be starting on my Patriots. Like, he would, okay? So, Ayuk is a dynamic X receiver. Deebo is the best yards after catch threat in the NFL. George Kittle is a top 3 tight end. The offensive line is solid. It's not fantastic, but Trent Williams is arguably the best offensive lineman in the league. And they did add pieces in the draft. They did secure the same offensive line as last year, which led to the best offense in the league. And oh yeah, Brock Purdy has an actual offseason to kind of work out some of his issues and get better and grow mentally and physically as a player, as well as having probably the best offensive play caller of this generation in Kyle Shanahan. So having the 49ers at number 4 is like, I don't even understand it. It doesn't even make any sense. It's ridiculous, okay? Because they can run the ball, they can throw the ball, they got play action. The reason they were in the Super Bowl is their offense. Like, their defense was not that good last year. They struggled with play calling. Their pass rush really wasn't as good. Their run defense wasn't as good. So to say the Niners are the 4th best offense in the league, regardless of whether the title is offensive cores, offensive rankings, whatever, is ridiculous. It's just ridiculous because they have all the skill talent. They've got an elite offensive lineman. They've got an elite running back. They've got an elite play caller. There's nothing that really is holding them out of being number 1, especially considering the competition that we just discussed. The Detroit Lions, I think, are a top 3 offense in the NFL. And again, I kind of hold that play calling thing in high regard. And Ben Johnson is one of the best play callers in the NFL and arguably was probably like the 2nd or 3rd best offensive play caller last year. Like, I think the best play callers in the league are Kyle, Ben Johnson, Mike McDaniel, Andy Reid. Those are the best play callers in the NFL, in my opinion. And Ben Johnson with Jared Goff, that offensive line, that's probably the best in the league. You look at it across the board, they've got 2 elite tackles. They've got an elite but aging center. They've got an elite guard duo, I would say, is pretty darn good. Maybe not elite, but Glasgow and Zeitler are aging, but still very, very good. Jahmyr Gibbs is one of the most explosive running backs in football. David Montgomery is very, very good as well in complement in terms of power and speed, right? They're a great complement to each other. Sam Laporta is becoming a top tight end in the league. Amon-Ra is a great slot receiver. And yeah, maybe the other receivers are a bit suspect, but they do expect, others to kind of step in and do some things, whether it be Jamison Williams or Donovan Peoples-Jones or Khalif Raymond, these guys that have made plays in other situations or in their situations. So, and really when you talk about the core of the Lions, it's run game, it's play action, it's middle of the field. And when you're talking about middle of the field, you've got Amon-Ra, you've got Laporta, you've got Jahmyr Gibbs, and Jared Goff ripping the ball between the numbers. So maybe this is a disrespect towards Jared Goff. I'm not exactly sure, but with this offensive line, with this running game, and with this play caller, this is a top 3 offense in the NFL, in my opinion. The Atlanta Falcons at number 6 is absolutely insanity. Like, this is complete projection, the Atlanta Falcons. Like last year, without Kirk Cousins and with Desmond Ridder, the Atlanta Falcons were the 27th best offense in EPA per play. So are we saying that the difference between Kirk Cousins and Desmond Ridder, Kirk Cousins coming off an Achilles, and Desmond Ridder, and maybe, I guess, adding Darnell Mooney, is the difference between 27 and 6. Is that really it? I could see the Falcons being a top 10 offense, maybe even a top 8 offense, to give you your argument here. But 6, when the Packers are not on the list, when the Dolphins are not on the list, when the Rams are not on the list, when the Bengals are not on the list, when the Texans are number 8, that's insanity. Okay, like when we look at this list, the Atlanta Falcons, yeah, the offensive line is good. Bijan is a beast. They should be able to run the ball. Drake London is a good receiver. I wouldn't categorize him as an elite, true number 1 receiver quite yet. Think he can get there. Kyle Pitts is more of a fantasy than he is an actual great player. And Cousins, again, is coming off an Achilles, and it's an entirely new play caller to, I think, the NFL in general. Like has Robinson ever actually called plays? Because Sean McVay has been there in LA. So I don't know. Like top 10, sure, I could buy it. Top 6 above the Texans, the Packers, the Rams, all these teams, the Dolphins, who were the 3rd best offense or 4th best offense in the league last year. That's crazy talk to me. Like the Bills were the 2nd best offense in terms of success rate last year, the 3rd best team in terms of EPA. Now, they did lose Stephon Diggs. They did lose Mitch Morse. So I could understand you declining them or lowering them, but they still got Josh Allen. They do have a strong running game. I think the O-line's kind of underrated, and they do have a plethora of weapons to throw the ball to. I think their tight ends, all the different weapons they have, I definitely could buy top 10 offense, but I think it's kind of going to be because of the quarterback and things like that. I do think the Bills are a lower-end top 10 offense, but I think they're a top 10 offense. So I'm not really going to sit here and disagree with the 7th ranking because that is lower end top 10 offense. So I totally understand that, especially if you're considering the core, which is really just Josh Allen at the end of the day. The Houston Texans at number 8 is insane. The Houston Texans offense has the best receiving trio in football and has a Pro Bowl level running back and a former Pro Bowl tight end, I believe, in Dalton Schultz. And CJ Stroud, who in my opinion is like a top 7 quarterback in the league already and probably is going to be a top 5 quarterback in the league this year. Like he is that good. They also have a very good play caller who's young and on the rise. So thinking about this Texans offense, what can they not do? Like they're explosive. Last year when they had Tank Dell and Nico Collins, never mind adding Stephon Diggs or Joe Mixon to the mix, they were one of the best offenses in the league when those players were on the field, when they were actually available. Like a majority of the year, they weren't available. Their offensive line had a plethora of injuries as well, and they still overcame that. Stroud's now entering year 2. Like this offense is a top 5 offense. You might disagree with the top 3, but the top 5 is, I don't think, really debatable. What do they not have? They have a great left tackle. They have a great young quarterback. They have a very good running back. They have a very good tight end. They have 3 really good receivers, Nico Collins, Tank Dell, and Stephon Diggs, that are all sort of different. Nico is a big target that can run, that can play X. Stephon Diggs is more of a Z type receiver. You can move him around. He's a great route runner, right? And Tank Dell is an explosive kind of quickness and vertical slot receiver. So you've got all those different dimensions to the offense and the passing attack, an improved running back position, and now more of a chemistry building between play caller and quarterback. The Texans are way better than the 8th best offense in the league. It's not even really a conversation. And then when we're talking about the teams that aren't even on the list, Miami, yeah, the offensive line I'm concerned about, but Tua was really good last year in terms of getting the ball where it needed to go. And with Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, the speed of their running backs, Jonnu Smith, as adding to the tight end mix with yards after catch in that offense, he's a great fit. Mike McDaniel as the play caller has kind of proven now to me in 2 years where he can really elevate a unit. And looking at what they could be in terms of speed, I mean, this is an Olympic track team. Like they've got 3 running backs that are 4.2 speed type guys. They've got Tyreek and Waddle. Even if you're not the biggest Tua fan, I still think that they're probably better than the Falcons. They're probably a better offense than the Bills, right? I mean, maybe their balance or their quarterback play is not as good, but they're probably a better offense than the Bills. They were a far better offense last year than the Chiefs. They were a far better offense last year than even the Ravens. So having them not on the list is a little interesting. I don't know how much of this is just playing into the core of it being Tua and maybe a lack of offensive line. The Rams, to me, are probably a top 10 offense in the league with Stafford, Nakua, Kupp, a good offensive line that's improved, adding Jonah Jackson, one of the better running backs in the league in Williams, Sean McVay as the play caller. That's a very good core of players. That's what I think a core is, right? And anyone else that I'm really missing? The Packers. The Packers don't really exactly have a lot of superstars, but they have one of the top 5 offensive lines in the league. They have an on-the-rise quarterback that I think is arguably already in that top 10 conversation. They have Josh Jacobs, the leading rusher from 2 seasons ago, and A.J. Dillon backing him up. They have a ton of receivers. They don't really have a superstar, but Christian Watson, Romeo Doubs, Jaden Reed, and is it Jaden Reed, right? And Dontavian Wicks. I always get these guys' names mixed up. They just have too many. That's the point, right? Musgrave at tight end. I don't know, man. Like, the Packers are definitely in that top 10 as well. Like, so the Bengals. I didn't even mention the Bengals. They got what's a core? What is a core? Like, seriously. You guys are just giving me opportunities for me to talk about the Bengals in every video. Really? Like, did we just forget the Bengals actually exist? Like, did we forget? This just sprung onto me right now. Do we forget about the Bengals? Why does everyone forget the Bengals exist? Like, what is a core? This list is invalid. What is a core? Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Orlando Brown, Trent Brown, Alex Kappa, Ted Karras. What is a core? I don't understand. Zach Taylor's not a bad play caller or offensive-minded coach, right? I think he's taking a step back as the play caller. But what is a core? If Joe Burrow to Jamar Chase with the Browns at tackle is not a core, and T. Higgins, I don't really understand what a core is. I think tight end improved with Mike Gesicki, and they added the same guys they had last year. What? You don't like Chase Brown? Is that it? You don't like Zach Moss? Why are the Bengals not on this list? Did they offend somebody? Did they hurt your feelings? Who else could be on this list? The Bears? Maybe, right? Like, that's a lot of projection, but the Bears. The Bucks are probably slightly outside that conversation. The Colts could maybe. If the Vikings had a quarterback, they'd probably be in that conversation. If the Browns had a quarterback, they might be in that conversation. So even the Jets could be a top 10 offense if everything comes together. But, man, I don't know about this list, man. I really, really don't. You guys let me know your opinion on this list. It's Mitch. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you in the next video. Peace.